you ever wondered what was out there in the night sky? Stared up at the stars in the hopes of seeing something out of the ordinary? Have you heard unexplainable noises coming from a vacant room, or watched a shadow cross the wall in front of you? Have you asked yourself if there is life after this one, or if you had life before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? If you have, you were on the fringe.
Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Mark.
I'm Pam.
And I'm Jess.
Woohoo!
Hey!
We did it.
Before we get started tonight, we're going to take care of some housekeeping. Oop, wrong one.
Hey, this is Mark with What If Tomorrow and What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. Be sure to check out our website, whatiftomorrowmedia.com, and look at our cool merch. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, posters, and more. Our affiliates are Duke Cannon, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and Conflicted the Game. Or check out buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. As always, be sure to like, comment, and share on both Facebook and YouTube. It helps get our content out to others and help our channel grow. Now on with the show.
It's like, wow, that was almost the shortest show ever. I started playing the outro instead of the ads.
Fast show.
That was a fast show. I heard the short thing was the way things are going now. So.
Well, you know, time is relative, so.
Time is relative. It could have been an eternity for people who don't like me. It's true.
Who are those people? I can't imagine there's any.
I have a list of people who don't like me. It's okay.
Oh.
Yeah. It's fine. Well, tonight we are this is part 2 of our Harmonics and Cymatics. Last time we covered health benefits that were known in the past and have been studied and shown to be true in the modern times. So tonight we're going to step farther off into the fringe. We're going to talk about whether the ancients used sound to like levitate things for cutting tools and what have you. We're going to talk about sound and the paranormal and see what that's all about. So, excuse me. They're cutting wheat in the area, and I am allergic, and
Yes.
I am having a time of it. So, if I cough in the mic or mute out, and if I mute out and turn the video off, I'm blowing.
As long as you don't fall out of the chair or, you know.
Yeah, I fell out of. I could fall out of the chair. It has happened, but it'll most likely be me and Mr. Kleenex box here.
Yes, me too. Mark has a wheat allergy, and I have a mold allergy. And we are in the season of rain right now. So
yeah, we have had a lot of rain this
Yes.
spring, which is thankful because we're actually getting about caught up with where we should have been.
Yeah. It's getting close.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, am allergic to pretty much everything. So
We just need to buy you a bubble and watch you roll around like a hamster.
that could be
he's always
cool,
got to one up
actually.
us.
People pay big bucks to do that, so I don't know why we couldn't do that.
I would be the one that would accidentally get to the hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, off into the
Oh, no.
ocean. Help me.
Absolutely. Yay. So where do we want to get started at tonight?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of stuff on YouTube and stuff talking about how the Egyptians may have used sound to like levitate blocks. Now, we don't have any evidence that this has happened, but it is an interesting theory because we know that in the lab we can use acoustic levitation to make objects float on pillows of sound, as it were. So it is an interesting line to study. We know the Egyptians. We have found evidence that the Egyptians have used more modern, what we would think of as more modern techniques to create things. There's evidence of high-speed machining uh, in on ancient artifacts there in the Giza Plateau. So, and a lot of people wonder how they could do that. I mean, because there's no evidence of it.
Is
Which
it
I have.
Timbuktu? Is that where the one where they show there's those large blocks that really look heavily machined?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's in South America.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, I have a theory about that, and it may combine with the sound theory. So I'm going to throw it out here, and then we'll see if it makes any sense to you guys. If it does, we'll chase it, and if not, we'll toss it out over our shoulder. So we found evidence of high-speeding machining in ancient South America and in Egypt. If you go online, you can find bowls that have machine marks and stuff on them that look like they were done from high-speed machines. Well, everybody thinks that they would have had to have electricity to do that. And the answer to that is no. I happen to know the location of a 19th century machine shop in Independence, Kansas, where they used machines that were run off when they were originally built off of water wheel. Now they're belt driven off an electric motor now, but he still uses the old machining methods that's belt driven. That was originally for use with a water wheel. So we have used it up until fairly recently without electricity. So my theory is that they built these tools on site to machine whatever it was. They would build it around the object they were machining and use the water wheels or what have you. You can do ratios with smooth belt on giant wheels and stuff and get your high speed rotation. And the ancient Egyptians were masters of woodworking and carving and turning things.
Just
So,
Mike, are you hearing that, Pam?
I'm hearing it too. Yeah.
You need to check your mic. We can barely hear you now. You've gone like muffled.
okay. And part of it could be just
There
me
we go.
being all.
That did it.
Okay.
That did it.
Whatever you did fixed it.
So I believe that they built these machines in situ. Like, say, if you've got a block, I want a machine. They just built the machine around it and moved it as they, like we would move a milling machine, but they would do it on wooden rails because they were very precise in a lot of their woodworking. They did some marvelous things with wood, and wood is, while not ideal, it can be very strong. And if they were just using it for one-off jobs, that's all disposable. The only parts that would not be disposable would be the cutting heads. Now, the cutting heads would probably been a bronze, so I would not think that they would hold up very well. But what if they were using sound to help cut the stone, or figured out that they could possibly turn the wheel at the frequency of the stone to make the cutting heads cut better? It's just a theory. I don't know. What do you girls think?
It's about as good a theory as any, honestly.
Yeah.
So, but I have seen the old school machine shops where they run everything off of a belt. It can be done. You can get very high speeds off of a water wheel that just barely turns. It's just a series of gears, and there's
it's all
ratios.
physics.
Look at our electrical plants, Hoover Dam. It powers through the water.
Yeah.
Powers the electrical plants.
Yeah, well, those are high speed turbines, so those do move pretty fast. But
yes,
if you ever get a chance, we'll say when you go to Branson, swing on down across the border to School of the Ozarks in Arkansas, and check out the water mill there. Now they're just using it as a water mill, but just see all the machines in that mill that are run off the water, and that wheel does not turn very fast.
Yeah,
it's all done, and they go down to smaller wheels. and make higher speeds as necessary.
It's I don't, I would think that's honestly as good a theory as any right now.
Because our ancestors were not dumb by any means.
No, they weren't at all.
They're just as smart as us. They might not have uncovered as much knowledge as we had, and in many cases, I believe they've uncovered more. But if you combine both of those theories, it suddenly becomes quite plausible that they could cut all sorts of things. Like you said, those stone blocks in South America.
Mhm.
From what I understand, it would be difficult for us using
Yes,
carbide tips on machines to mill and carve those the way they were.
absolutely. They've proven that. They've talked about the fact they brought in engineers that would absolutely be the experts on this. That are like, we don't know how they did it. We would love to know how they did it.
Right. So their high speed cutting machines would probably be fairly low speed compared to ours. But what if they were enhancing the cutting with the application of cymatics?
Mhm.
If you know the frequency of the rock, you just make your bit turn at that frequency.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
there are stories about turning rock into putty, basically.
that's a South American thing
Yeah.
where they would use chemicals. They believe they may have used chemicals on these rocks to make them soft so that their weight would cause them
Yes.
to form these. So they
Yeah.
weren't cut that way. They softened them up and let them run in together, which is what it looks like. It looks like marshmallows stacked
does.
up if you look at it.
Especially, yeah, it does. Machu Picchu, some of the stone work up there absolutely looks like that. And that's so high up. I can't remember how many thousand feet up that is. Um, how did they get them up there if they didn't do something like that? How did they get those stones in place?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the chemistry works for softening the rock like that, but
Way out of my pay grade. I have no clue.
well,
I'll talk about it, but I don't know nothing about
it's
it.
too bad Eric didn't become a mechanical engineer instead of an
I
electrical engineer,
know,
right? He could tell us all
right?
about this.
Yes. Yeah, he could have.
You should ask him about it because he's a pretty bright kid, and I just lost my second monitor.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh no. We're having all sorts of technical difficulties
I am having
today.
technical difficulties.
My
Uh,
mic's out, so yeah.
That's where all my research is.
Oh
Oh,
no.
are you gonna wing it?
What I'm going to do is I believe I'm going to let you guys discuss this for just a moment while I duck
Discuss
out
among yourselves.
and make sure that this is plugged in.
Okay.
I've had help from a little kitty
Oh,
recently, and things are
which is what we suspect is the problem with my mic tonight as well.
things are chaotic behind my desk. So one moment, why don't you guys talk about that real quick, and I'll take care of my technical
Well,
issues.
Well, we're talking about Egyptians and stuff like that.
Mhm.
In the 10th century, there was an Arab historian who wrote that the Egyptians were being visited by beings known as the guardians of the sky, who gave them the knowledge that enabled them to levitate the massive limestone blocks, which they built the pyramids with. So I always thought that's interesting. And that they had a certain sound, a certain vibration that would cause the blocks to move by themselves. And I think that's cool. That's something that's always fascinated me.
Yeah. Well, it's something else like Egyptian related. So I worked a lot with the ley line information, and I have more to tell. But of course, the pyramids are built on one of the major ley lines, as are a lot of the different monuments, the ancient monuments. And the pyramid itself, the interior section of it is made of a stone. Well, they think it was almost like an aggregate that was built kind of like a concrete.
Yes. Yeah.
But with the bases of quartz. But it's only on the interior, and then there's the regular layer on the outside, and then they capped it all with that
Limestone.
quartz-based limestone again.
That's
And
awesome.
they wonder, that's where they get the idea that it might have been some type of a battery. But a lot of people think that they built that interior out of that stuff, and it was actually the base for those stones to be moved up on, that it was being
Oh, maybe so.
vibrated.
You know,
Yeah.
and the Egyptians, as far as we know, invented concrete.
Cool.
Yeah.
The path up to the pyramid, the Great Way, whatever
Uh-huh.
they call it, that's all concrete. That's concrete pavement, and it's existed for thousands of years.
So it's really good concrete pavement.
Yeah. They
Better than
didn't
what
do
we
as
could
good a job. The Romans perfected concrete, but it appears that either the Egyptians invented it or inherited the recipe for it.
That's cool.
So
We got some people jumping in the comments. Sylvain's here, Chris is here, Enzo's here.
Hey,
So, yay.
everybody.
And yes, Enzo, it was catastrophic what has happened tonight.
yeah, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I
Lame.
did blame the cat. And
The only cat that hasn't made an appearance tonight or mischief tonight is Bronwyn. No Bronwyn
Yeah.
in there?
I hope not. She has drove me crazy all freaking day,
You're like,
and she can just stay away.
yeah,
It's the yowlingest cat I've ever met.
that's funny.
Yeah, you don't
That
want her
is-
here. I'd have to be on mute the whole time.
Stewie's wandering around in the background somewhere. I saw him a little bit ago.
that's not a cat. That's a horse.
He is a big boy.
He is a big cat. Battle cat. Oh, had a He-Man flashback.
Pick him up. He's like, oh, weighs like 22 pounds now, I think.
Goodness.
I know.
Are you sure he didn't eat one of those kids at college?
He may have.
He may have. That may be how they got rid of the troublemakers in the dorm.
Well, he's so fluffy, you know. You
They got-
think he's all fluff, but you pick him up and he's just like a solid block of muscle.
Yeah.
All right.
So, was that me
So-
freezing up? Did I freeze?
No,
No.
you're not frozen.
Okay. I'm like, oh no, here we go.
So we've talked about ancient machining in Egypt, and we've talked about. Did you speak about the paranormal aspect of it, or
Not yet.
not yet? All right. Do
Let's
we
go
want?
paranormal. Let's jump
Um,
in for it.
I don't have anything paranormal. I mean, I can talk about ley lines
Well,
on that side of it, or
I thought you said something about the vibrations of these haunted places. The sound.
oh yeah, I just thought you meant like continue on with the Egyptian stuff.
Oh, we
No,
can do that too.
so yeah, in my perusal, my deep dive, I was kind of hunting up. I was really interested. We were talking in the last show about them putting low resonances underneath the horror movies to give you that, uneasy, nervous feeling. Even when there wasn't music playing, you can kind of feel this. And it's how they get all their great jump scares in. I was really interested in like the technology of that. So I went hunting around and actually found, let me see here, see if I can pull it up. Yeah, so the resonance they use when they're playing that underneath movies is 18.98 hertz, way lower than what we think we can hear. We can cognitively feel it underneath, and it kind of gives you that nervousness to it. I started wondering if that's our natural tune in to things that make us nervous. So I was thinking, well, a haunted space, would you get the same kind of feeling for that? And I was actually very surprised. I went and looked, and someone's already done the work. So back in the early 2000s, they did a study, and they went to known haunted places that are supposedly very genuinely haunted, and they did sound studies on them at night, trying to capture, just the resonance of the place without a lot of outside noise. And they studied over a number of months and found out that all of these places that are supposed to be genuinely haunted all resonate at the exact same frequency, and it just so happens to be 18.98 hertz, just like the sound that they play in the movies. So it makes you wonder, was it the chicken or the egg that came first? Did the
Right.
movie people figure out that that was the resonance that these hauntings had, or this is what the hauntings have had all along, and the two didn't know about each other, kind of a situation?
I have the
Like,
feeling that they came up with it independently, just like we're coming up with the same research that the ancients most likely did
mhm.
independently. We found out that how sound can heal and whatnot. And then we're looking back and saying, "Oh, well, they knew this. When did we forget it?"
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I just thought it was super interesting though. So that same uncomfortable, like pity your stomach type of feeling you get when you're sitting in these jump scare movies is literally what us sensitive people feel when we walk into a natural haunted area. So that also proves to you that like some people just can't pick up those resonances as easily as some others
Yeah.
if
I
they
have a
can walk into a
fun idea.
oh yeah.
Very fun
What?
idea. Let's get us a bank of really, really, really big subwoofers and put them, faced into the walls and on the ground, and then put that frequency on and see if we can create a haunted location temporarily.
You
That's an idea.
probably, yeah, that's kind of along that whole tulpa idea of creating that haunting. I also had a secondary thought to this. So, um, could you unhaunt a place by changing its resonance? Could you remove it?
That's interesting.
That is an interesting. That would be another interesting sounding. I happen to know somebody who has access to a large amount of sound equipment. I
I can't
wonder
imagine
who
who.
that might be. And
Well, I have a feeling that it would have to be done over a long extended period of time. So they've proven that you can change the resonance of things with manipulation like this, but it's usually over long periods of time because you've really got to change the structure of something. So I don't know how that would work with a haunted entity because it's the entity that's changing the resonance. They're the thing that is
maybe
ringing
the resonance
at this
attracts
frequency.
them.
So I wonder if it's a combination. If you've got the resonance, you've got the entity that is potentially
Mm-hmm.
coming in with the resonance, and if there's a ley line included too. Not every haunted place, but on some of the bigger ones that we know
Yeah.
lay on ley lines.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
that could fuel the resonance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
you talk about using water to turn the pulleys. So what if water, and we know water around ley lines can really fuel situations. So I wonder if that kind of acts as a, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me, guys. I'm dying here.
Generator,
Kind of, yeah. Um, to
energizer.
to boost it.
It could. An amplifier.
Amplifier. Thank you. Sorry, my
It
brain.
could be. I don't know. I was just in the last show, Mark talked a lot about the different frequencies that could be used for different things. Like one could, like bring peace, or one could, help with healing.
Mhm.
I was wondering if like we could find one that would repel those into, if it would change their resonance, and they would leave or just
Make it unappealing
vanish.
to be there, possibly.
Basically like clearing a house,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like cleansing a house, only we would do it with
Oh,
sound.
yeah, like those little rodent things that you can have that emit the high pitched squeal that they can't
Mhm.
stand.
I just made us $1 million.
You did.
I did, because we could build the little boxes that just plug into an outlet and put them through a haunted house with the frequency that cancels it, and see if
I
it made
think you
people
did,
feel
Mark.
better about living there.
I think you did. Holy crap! You could be onto something.
Yeah,
Did you see what
I've
Enzo
seen on
said in the
TV.
comments?
What-
He
I
said
am.
Mark's going to use the subwoofers to make a haunted brown sound.
Oh no, not back to the brown sound.
No,
Thank you,
Enzo. I like to
Enzo.
threaten that, but I mean, yeah, we could take it to Shark Tank. I mean,
You
I bet we
totally
could come up
should.
with.
That's all we need is our clients crapping themselves. That will
Yeah.
scare away the ghosts, though, don't you?
I'll tell you what, it might make you more money than to get rid of a haunted place. People buy that
To make it more
get their
comfortable for them
enemies.
to live in.
Oh
No,
my
well,
gosh.
but the sound, it might not get rid of the haunting, but it would make the people
Less fearful.
less fearful while they live there, and could eventually, over the years, change the resonance of the location to a much more positive resonance.
Well, we know that fear is a big motivator for things to hang around and feed off that energy.
And
So
if you
did,
eliminate the fear,
yes, you could make it less palatable for whatever is there.
we also know a young electrical engineer who might be able to help us with this.
I don't know if we could talk him into it or not. We could try. He thinks
Cut
we're
him in
crazy
for
anyway, so.
cut him in for a percentage.
Okay, that might change everything.
We'll give him. We'll give
He
him
thinks we're
40.
crazy, but he's not dumb.
We'll give him 40% of the take.
I have to tell him. He's running.
I mean,
around
he's going to do the
somewhere.
work, right?
Yeah, for sure. He'd have to. I have no clue.
It
I'd be
should
like,
be a fairly.
I'm not even sure I'm qualified to hold the light in that instance,
If you know what the frequency is, it should be a fairly straightforward engineering
You would think.
issue. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Very
like
well
it.
could be.
I don't know.
I
I
don't
just
know.
thought it was
He's very
really.
smart. I don't know where he came from. He's way smarter than me. So he took all my smarts.
Well, I never had any, so
Yeah. Anywho, I thought that would be something fantastic for us to try.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
I
just-
see a field trip in our future
yeah.
I do indeed.
that we may need to bring our watchers along with.
Well, I'm wondering if we could get a volunteer who has a very bad experience in their house and just play the tone generator in there for a few nights and see how they feel.
I may have a subject.
There we go.
Actually, we were kind
This
of
is the
talking about it
scientific
before.
process. We come up with an idea. These are the results we expect, and we can just test them through the scientific process. So
I'm making notes.
Yeah. It'd be super interesting.
that would be a good experiment. That'd be a good long-term experiment.
So you guys that are watching us, our billions of viewers out there, you are seeing what our normal nerd herd meetings kind of how they run.
Yeah, and that is what we call them. We call it the nerd herd.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody pops out an idea and then everybody else throws ideas in until something finally congeals.
We shake it up and see what comes out.
Yeah.
We've got a giant martini mixer and we just shake it
I
all
will
up.
say this is one of the better ideas that's come out of our little group.
Yeah, this is really cool. You guys are listening to history. We may be solving people's paranormal problems all over the world.
And if somebody else is doing this
copyright.
Yes.
Copyright board of town. Copyright board of town. Y'all can't steal it. No,
Yep.
Enzo.
Enzo, you know we're going to be pulling you in to help us with this, right?
Yeah. So, another little interesting side note. So, nothing paranormal here. In my search for all of this, I wanted to know if the human body, the average human, had a resonance, because we're electrical, so we're gonna have one, right? So it resonates right at about 10 hertz. And I was looking at some of the studies on how they did that. And it occurred to some people on there, and I kind of have to agree with them, that because we know that if you put two things together that is running at the same frequency, it can mess with some stuff,
Yeah.
right? It can bond them, it can repel them. So if you think about it, if the human body resonates, they all resonate at about 10 hertz, you're definitely going to know when somebody walks into the room, even though we can't audibly hear it. Humans don't start hearing until about 20 hertz. So, but you can feel it solely because you are running at 10 hertz also. So that's
Yeah.
how you know when there's somebody behind you in the room, or
That's that feeling where you think somebody's staring at you.
yeah,
Yes.
you're not feeling them stare, you're feeling their
There's a
resonance
disturbance in the force.
messing with yours.
Literally,
It
actually.
Literally. Yeah.
Their
that's
vibrations are slightly out of sync with yours, so you sense them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes sense. So it makes you think if sneaky people just automatically sync with the people they're sneaking up on.
Think about it.
That's
There are times when somebody
ninja
can walk
stuff.
up right behind you and you have no clue they're right there. That's happened to me. Normally I can tell, but there's times I haven't been able to. And that's
Yeah.
unnerving when somebody can get that close and you don't realize it.
Yeah, they're in sync with your vibration, so you don't notice them.
Yep.
There you go. We're solving mysteries all over the place.
Yay. Look at us.
Woohoo!
Whoop whoop. I'm sorry, I sound like I'm dying. I really don't feel that bad, but
You don't
You're
sound as bad as you
fine.
think you do, I don't think.
the I sound real nasally to myself tonight.
Not that bad.
Well, who wants to go next?
Hmm.
Let's see. What do we have? Let me go through my stuff over here.
All right, I do have a quote from Aristotle.
Ooh.
And he says, well, I guess this is from Demetrius, from Aristotle. In Egypt, when priests sing hymns to the gods, they sing the 7 vowels in due succession, and the sound of these vowels has such euphony that men listen to it instead of the flute and the lyre.
Hmm.
So I have read that a lot of magic that the ancients considered magic was based on sound, the ability to affect the human mind and stuff.
They just
So
approached a problem in a different direction than what we do today.
right, and they approached it from a more mystical standpoint, but they found the mechanics for it, but misinterpreted whether it was magic or just something natural that they were able to manipulate to their advantage.
And honestly, some of the things that we think of as magical or mystical today may not have been so magical or mystical to them, to our ancestors, if they had a different approach or a different take on things.
Right. Well, and then, there is the old saying that any technology sufficiently advanced would appear to be magic to
Yes.
someone not.
Yep.
So, if these mystics had harnessed the power of sound for healing, for doing work, for making people uncomfortable or putting them at ease, then to the lay people who didn't understand what was going on, this would have been magic.
Yeah.
And very well, it could have been that these people who were shamans or mystics or whatnot knew that it was just sound and that the sound was doing it. And they just couched it in all sorts of stuff to make themselves look powerful and, to give them power over. Because humans have a very bad tendency to grasp for power, uh, unfortunately. even on the small scale. So I can see somebody coming up with something like this and just saying it's magic.
To
Even
hold
if
power over other people. The
right,
Wizard of Oz. You're describing the Wizard of Oz. You know,
exactly.
he was behind the curtain the whole time. The little dude, you know, doing all the smoke and mirrors, and he was the great and powerful Oz, and he really wasn't. You know, he just figured a way to manipulate things to his advantage.
Right. I mean, and
Yeah.
we see it on TV every freaking night. If we have the stomach to watch the news, which I very
I
rarely
don't
do
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, I don't anymore. It's
It
too
just is
disturbing.
better for my blood pressure that I not. So
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
already have enough problems. I don't need to. Uh-oh. Another kitty attack.
It emerged.
Oh, is it Bronwyn? It's Bronwyn. Look at the face.
That is the best
I was like
resting bee
completely
face.
unimpressed with all of us.
Yes, she is.
I could go get Iris. She could give her a run for her money in RBF.
Oh, I don't know. That's a pretty good one.
Oh,
She's
we might be able to
heavy.
just run off. We might be able to just run off all of our listenership
Look at the tail.
with the two cats.
Jess, your tail's showing.
I know.
Jess is secretly a cat girl.
Not really. I said no cats, and this is what my kid brought home.
Well, I'm allergic to cats, so I've got two.
Looking a little Cthulhu-ish, actually.
Yeah.
A tentacle going on there.
Elder God there.
That's funny.
One
Yeah.
of the old ones.
Anywho.
That's great.
All right.
So I wanted to jump back to this. We kind of went over this a little bit before, but this is something I was telling you guys that I found very interesting before we came on live tonight. Back in 2019, there were scientists at Columbia University, and they made a discovery that was extremely interesting, I thought. So they did an experiment. It's a physicist. His name's Angelo Esposito, and he demonstrated that phonons, they're like particles of sound, that they are affected by gravity, but in a highly unexpected way, and that sound could trigger this like negative mass effect. Okay, so instead of forcing down towards the earth, phonons actually rise upwards, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Because, you know, they thought that the phonon itself had mass, but it doesn't. It has a negative mass and a negative gravity, which is why it rises. Because photons themselves have mass, so they lower, you know, they don't rise. So it turns out under certain conditions with sound waves, they can actually start to rise instead of fall with these phonons in place. They thought it was like an anomaly, but it ended up being consistent with the laws of physics. And so certain vibrations, instead of falling down, they actually fall up, which is kind of a Shel Silverstein thing, which is fun.
that is pretty interesting.
It is. You know, it's really exciting on a number of levels because in regards to what we're discussing, it could be seen as experimental evidence, you know. But think about it. If you take this, you've got your photons that go down, you've got your phonons going up. If you think about that in like a 3D effect, what could you do with that? You could lift heavy things and move them around.
Or you could make vehicles that floated on a cushion of these phonons.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something in some of the older, like the ancient not cathedrals, Indian temples and things, where they have what they consider to be a vehicle that sits on top of things, that a vehicle of the gods. I'm losing the name of it. I can't remember what it is. Do you remember?
From the Vita?
Yes. And so they call it the vehicle of the gods. How did it move? They don't know. But if you have the sound resonating with the phonons pushing up, the photons coming down in perfect harmony, where you could lift it, you could actually theoretically drive it, move it.
So what you just described would be like a UFO.
Absolutely. I mean, we have UFOs. We don't know how, you know, there's no
and the light comes down.
Yes, there's a light that comes down, but there's no emission from it. There's no heat signatures. There's nobody's figured out. If you look at it infrared, you don't see how it's being propelled. And who's to say it's not something like that? I think it's a fascinating idea.
Harmonics, why not? I
Absolutely.
mean, we're
Yeah.
finding out a lot about these. How much power do they have or don't have?
Yes. And this,
Someone sufficiently advanced could harness that energy and basically produce some kind of miracle.
that's where the cymatics comes into play, where you've got
Well,
the sounds and you put them into a standing wave, which does the whole lift and go.
wouldn't that be perfect for a very small, lightweight, and maneuverable spy device?
Oh yeah, big time.
How many of
That's
these
not
UFOs are tiny?
Yeah.
Lots of them.
The very small balls that show up,
Yeah.
the little spheres that are seen that are no
They
bigger than a
could-
basketball.
That could be like a camera drone, and it's just buzzing around. Oh, let's buzz these people just for fun. They won't know
Right
what
now in the lab, like in this particular lab, they can raise ping pong balls, they can raise smaller objects and hover them just with sound waves. So absolutely it's possible. It's just a matter of fine tuning it to figure it out. I make it sound like it's so easy,
miniaturizing the technology to be self-contained.
Mhm. Well, look at how, and think about it. It can happen. Look at how computers started out. They were ginormous. And
yeah.
now they're down into these really tiny microchips.
Have you seen pictures of the first hard drive?
How big was it?
They used a fork truck to move it. It didn't have enough data on it to hold a whole song.
Oh my gosh. I'll age myself here. I remember when I got my very first computer, one of my friends, their dad built it for me. And I remember saying I wanted a gig. I wanted a gigabyte hard drive in it. And they laughed at me. They said there was no way I would ever in a million years fill a gig up with anything, with all the information that I could possibly.
I got flash drives sitting here with 128.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
and it's getting full.
It's above terabytes now. What is the next one that's up from that? I can't even remember.
I don't know, but
I've heard the name and I can't.
I've seen a lot. I've seen 10 terabyte drives for sale.
Yeah, I mean that's so far beyond.
And they're not large.
No, they're not. They're just like a little external hard drive.
Somebody donated an old mainframe to the college when I was going to college back in the 80s. And it had old school hard drives in it. And then basically the data was on basically looked like a giant rubber ring that you open this big clear door and you set it in there and it would spin it. And they had very little data on them. A floppy disk. Those of you who remember 3.5-inch floppy disk.
Yep.
They didn't hold as much as a floppy disk did.
That's crazy.
And at the time we were going like, these two of these are the equivalent of this. And now look at it. The floppy disk doesn't even hold enough to.
I remember when the smaller floppies came out and we were so impressed,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you were like, had to have the little protective cases for them because if you bent them, you were screwed. Yeah.
I remember having the 10-inch floppies for my CAD cam course. Or maybe they were 8. They were 8 or 10. They were huge.
That's
I didn't mind the floppies. It was the freaking code you had to put in just to get the damn thing to run.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
DOS. MS DOS.
And you get one little one number or something wrong, and you had to go, delete it.
Do you like all the code, and then it does the whole flashes. Hello.
I remember
proud of yourself because you got it to flash hello.
I remember typing a game in by hand.
Yeah.
Over a days. Then when it didn't work, you had to go through it and debug it manually because.
Oh man.
And they were simple little games too. And I was saving them. I had a Commodore. And you save them to an audio cassette. That's how you did it.
I'm gonna see if I can find this.
Enzo says they still use the. Hold on. They still use those 5.25 floppies for targeting information.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go.
Well, and you see the old computers, they had the big tape reels, and they would go back and forth. I mean,
hmm
that's how you stored data. And like I
Yeah.
said, they didn't hold a whole lot.
I just found this picture. As soon as I get it on here, I'll put it up for you to show.
Alrighty.
Always thought this was cool. It's a picture of Margaret Hamilton. She's standing by the code that she wrote by hand to take people to the moon.
Oh,
Moon
yeah.
in
I've seen this
1969. Do you
picture.
guys remember this picture?
hmm
Yeah, I mean, and
It's so incredible.
it's amazing what the human mind is capable of. And keep in mind, the math she was using was not that much more advanced than what the Greeks were using when the Alexandria Library was still extant. So
What did it say?
our ancestors, if they'd have had the technology to send something that far, could have done the math to do it. They should be able to have done the math. So if you get stuck in your time machine, go to the Great Library. Somebody is probably smart enough to help you fix the code and plot your way home.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there it is. Let me see if I can get it on here now. I'm struggling. Good grief. Here I'm talking about
When you think about it,
Cymatics and stuff, and I can't even get a picture to come up.
music and math, i.e., sound and math, just go together. So the fact that somebody in ancient times came up with all this shouldn't be that surprising for you. We think just because of our high tech, our smartphones and whatnot, that we're so much better than our ancestors. They had to work for everything, and they were not dumb by any means. They built the foundations that we built our society on, and it's best that we do not forget that.
Absolutely. Here, I'll just pull it up this way. It's in Reddit. That's the handwritten code. Handwritten. Could you imagine?
Yeah, it's taller than she is.
Taller than she is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's like my notebooks.
I mean, you guys probably could have been friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No way. I don't have a mathy bone in my body.
Me neither. I don't math well.
Y'all,
I don't math at
I
all.
have a headache from just trying to reconfigure a timesheet with overtime stuff in it. I can't even think anymore. An Excel file. I had to rewrite the stuff for it today, and I didn't get it done. So my brain is shot.
You've been over mathed.
I have been overmathed.
Over mathed. It's a wonder her head didn't explode.
I can't even formulate the word formulas anymore. That's the word I was looking for.
Well, I'm having a great deal of difficulty speaking tonight, but like I said, allergies bad.
Ugh.
It is a bad time for me in Kansas. The wheat harvest is just getting started, and I'm only going to get worse till it's done.
Yep.
I may actually wake up with my eyes completely swollen shut here
Oh,
before too many
Ugh.
days.
that's not good.
Not
It has
good.
happened, and it will happen again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
All
All
right.
right. Before we go totally off the rails here,
Digging through notes.
Well, why not?
let's talk about ley lines. So
Ley lines.
if you've kept up with the show, we've done actually a whole show on ley lines. I believe it was 2 years ago, or was
Something
it
like
1 year
that?
ago?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Something like that. Go back and watch it. I really want to do another show again sometime because I have even more information now that I would love to put out there.
Right.
But ley lines are very important to this topic that we're talking about because that is what they are. Ley lines are alignments on the planet that beat out electromagnetic energy, and it all has resonance, and each line has its own type of resonance. Now it changes and it fluctuates because they're like big battery lines, like they fill up and fill up and fill up, and they hold power and then they release them. And that is why you see so many of these ancient monuments and structures built on them. The ancients knew what they were doing, and it goes even further back than what you think. I mean, the Chinese called them dragon lines. They
Yeah.
believed that they all met at one place, and that was the dragon. And all of these lines were lines out from its heart, and it would just beat them out. And if the dragon ever died, the lines would die, which basically was saying if Mother Nature kicks it, if the Earth kicks it, the lines die.
Right.
Yeah, so you can certainly measure the resonance of each line, but it will change day to day. And some lines don't have much at all, and some of them are extremely powerful. And there's a huge one that's extremely powerful, and that is the one that has Gobekli Tepe and Stonehenge on it. There's several lines that are very strong. There's ones that have the pyramids on it. We were talking about the pyramids, Machu Picchu, Anchor Weight, and Chaco Canyon, places like that. It's literally almost a heartbeat of power, and this resonance just hums through them. And the interesting thing about it is these monuments, if you go and you really take a deep dive in these monuments and take a look at what they're made of, the base stonework of some of these ancient monuments, most of them begin with like a limestone or a quartz, something that works as a battery and can be powered up and hold.
Right. Just like an electrical chip.
Yeah.
Just like
even some of like the big cathedrals, if you don't know already, especially in European and Asian countries, they build their temples and their churches and their abbeys on these ley lines. In fact, the Europeans are quite blatant about it. They lay the lines down. You can follow the lines through town. They actually put them in metal, or they mark them somehow in the stonework leading up to the churches, so you can see where the ley lines lay at.
Oh, we need to get some images for that sometime.
And think about it. I mean, even before the churches put them down, most of the churches were built upon pagan sites of power.
Right.
Exactly.
To get rid of the pagan side of power, to make the people more accepting to still go there.
We had
talked about this a couple of weeks ago when the first part of this show was it only takes a generation, maybe two, for this information to just disappear.
Yeah.
Especially if you're actively trying to make it disappear.
Mm-hmm. And they were actively erasing a lot.
Which they were doing. They were trying to erase everything out of their own righteousness.
It's all about power
again, like, yeah, you're exactly right. It's about power. Yeah. Even though I am a Christian, I also can look at history and understand that many rulers, including religious rulers and leaders, have used that against the people for their own power, which I think is the height of evil. But
it's the old saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. And once you get a little power, you want a little more, you want a little more, you want a little more. And unfortunately, human nature is,
it's terrible.
As good as we can be just as bad. Fortunately, most people fall someplace in the middle, but
pressed, when a person is pressed, you don't know
which way you're going to go.
You can say what you would like to think is going to happen, but you don't know for sure until you're actually in that situation.
Right. Absolutely. That's true. That's true. Will you join the light side or the dark side? I'm content to be here in the gray area.
100%. We have our own side.
Yes. The wacky side.
The wacky side. All right. So, okay. So, all of these big monument places that are sitting here basically charging themselves, they're basically batteries hanging on these lines. So, you can imagine, like a daisy chain plug-in cord that you would get for, like behind your line of computers and stuff. This is kind of what we're talking about. So, if you go back, the nerd side.
Absolutely.
If
My
you go
wife
back
says
and
it's
you
the nerd
watch
side.
Yeah, you watch our first show on ley lines, you'll hear us talking about um, it was known that many communities who lived near these natural monument or not natural, excuse me, ancient monuments would often breed their seeds for that year's harvest in to these areas to almost bless them. And they said that they would get better yields from these seeds if they did this. So if you think about our last show, our first part here, when Mark was talking about, uh, the different resonances and what they would do for you, it might make you healthier, or it might make you more calm, or I'm very sure it probably did the same for the seeds. It would make them better. It would make them grow better. And it's the same thing for crop circles, if you think about it.
Yep.
Right.
You've heard about where these crop circles happen. Now, sometimes the dirt under it goes bad, but more often than not, the crops that grow out of those places where the circles used to be are suddenly
Robust.
Healthier.
robust and fantastic.
And something I'm not going to get us off on a sidetrack. Just wanted to ask if you noticed that many of these churches and cathedrals and stuff built on these ley lines and these ancient spots are also well known for their acoustics.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're fueling these acoustics, which are designed to make you feel euphoric
Hmm.
with ley line energy.
Yep.
So anyway, that's all I wanted to point out.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine like Stonehenge in its heyday when it was all completely there, coming in for when like the solstice would happen and they would have the alignments. This thing's been charging like crazy and the alignment's getting ready to happen, and they're singing and chanting. So you have that added resonance there. Holy cow, could you imagine? It would be like a religious experience. Like you would leave feeling completely changed.
And there is a sound for that
Mhm.
Yeah.
that causes that feeling of enlightenment that you get in many of these places. And there is a tone for that
Mhm.
that causes that feeling. So
There's been recent tests on Stonehenge too, and those suggest that like the stones themselves were positioned to cause a sound wave uh, interference pattern, similar to like noise canceling headphones. So it would create it does create spots of just total silence in different portions, around the circle. So like if you stand in the center and you create like a sound blast of music or something or whatever was used, because we have no idea what they used back then, it would bounce off the stones and it would create an echo chamber effect. So whoever is standing in the center of it, they're going to create these musical sounds. And if it's like of a low frequency, that can build up an energy. So you've got that, we don't know what the energy was built for. We haven't figured that out. We may never figure that out, but they have proven that they've at least advanced to the point where we know that more than likely that could be what it was used for, was to build up an energy. We just don't know what the energy was for.
Mhm.
yeah, and there's been several studies about the cymatics of Stonehenge. So I encourage all of our listeners, whether they be on live or if they listen to us later on Spreaker or your local podcast provider, to do look this stuff up. It is absolutely fascinating.
It is. Yeah. It's always
It
fascinating.
is. So like another interesting one while we're on the topic of these ley lines and stuff, I mentioned Chaco Canyon, And I've always been very interested in Chaco Canyon. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, so like it's an awe-inspiring place. I would love to go see it one of these days. They said that you can stand there and it's literally like standing in a cathedral, but outside. They said like you can literally feel it when you step into the area. It just reverberates with this other omnipresence is what they said. Well, they've done studies on it, and I decided to go and take kind of a closer look at some of it because I knew it had something to do with resonance. It has to, if you can actually feel that when you walk in. And I found a really interesting study. I had never heard of these before, but have you guys heard of Choco Rocks?
Choco Rocks. Sounds like
Choco
a weird
Rocks.
cereal.
It sounds delightful, actually.
It does, doesn't it? They're actually just rocks they've taken out of Chaco Canyon. And these rocks actually have a different resonance to them
Really?
than the area they're, yeah, even taken
That's
out,
cool.
they still have the same resonance that Chaco Canyon has. They just take it with them. It doesn't
Huh.
seem to change, right? And I was kind of reading into it, and they did a study back in 2012. 2012 rears its
Yep.
ugly head again.
Ding, ding, ding.
Um, and it was just so interesting. I actually saved a little blurb here to read to you guys, just so you could kind of understand a little bit of what's going on. So, Chaco Canyon, the people who lived there, I mean, they were deeply religious in their own religion, chants, uh, just heavy in that. That was just their society. That's how they lived. And they used a lot of instruments for their ceremonies, instruments that were not native to that area. They would bring in stuff like conch shells and bells and things like that to do these big ceremonies with. And they found that it actually created this resonance within the area on top of the resonance that was already there that really just made this all-encompassing experience
Cool.
for people who were there. So I'm just going to read this little excerpt to you because I can't explain it any better than it does here. So it says, Richard Luce is the name of one of the gentlemen who was in charge of this study, and his colleagues have used experiments to explore the resonance of conch shell trumpets in Chacoan settings. Luce recreated a shell trumpet using a strombus, and I have no idea what this word is, shell, and he used digital software to measure the pitch and loudness when blown. His 20 centimeter long experimental shell trumpet produced a sound at 329.84 hertz with harmonic overtones at 650 and 974.4 hertz. He measured the sound at 96 decibels above the noise floor of his recording system. Luce observed that pitch and loudness would vary, however, depending on each shell's bare configuration, as well as the volume of air forced through the bores. Luce deployed his experimental trumpet in acoustic research carried out with John Stein, Richard Friedman, and others in front of a Tauric sandstone cliff face in downtown Chaco Canyon, between the great houses of Pueblo Bonito and Chertoqueti. In Dene oral traditions, this cliff face is called, well, I can't pronounce the actual word, but it means the curved rock that speaks. So this was their main ceremony area. And it was where deities taught Navajo hero twins how to produce the vocal tones used in ritual chants, accompanied by shell trumpet, eagle bone whistles, and reed flutes. The investigators measured the sandstone cliff at approximately 150 meters long by 25 meters high and dubbed the region in front of it the amphitheater. So now we're starting to get kind of an idea of why this was happening. Due to the interesting acoustic effects they observed, over multiple occasions the researchers played amplified music, sine waves, flutes, and conch shell trumpets in the amphitheater, acquiring 5 hours of experimental recordings. Reverberations in the amphitheater last for 2 seconds, comparable to a concert hall, and there is a secondary echo with a 3.5 second delay from across the canyon to the south. The torus curve of the cliff causes unusual effects, including virtual sound image, in which sounds seem to be emanating from within the cliff, and acousma, in which sound produced nearby were heard as garbled or spooky, unintelligible noises. Right?
Interesting.
So it kind of reminded me, remember we were talking about the Sistine Chapel. The voices are so far away from the peak of that roof that by the time they come back down, it becomes that hummy, garbled,
Whispery.
just whispery sound,
Yeah.
right? They concluded that the amphitheater was intentionally used by the Chacoans during their ritual performance events. So that added on top of it. So imagine like the reed flutes and the conch shells and all the bells ringing and stuff with that resonance just echoing all over the place. Holy cow. But that all the
Yeah.
stone around there is like that. It like creates this but yeah, they say if you just walk into it, you
That's
can
cool.
literally feel it almost like in your organs. I would love to experience it myself.
I would. Because I have a
And
feeling.
I was just gonna say, they say it sometimes you get more of an experience than what you would normally, and I'm pretty sure that's because it's on the ley line, and probably that ley line is charged at that time, so you're
Right.
really feeling it amped up. I'm
And-
sorry, what you're gonna say, Mark?
I was going to say, well, you pretty much hit on it. I have the feeling that this is the reason why these churches exist in the places they exist. Because I, for one, have felt that feeling when you hit a note just right in some of these hymns and stuff. That just puts this feeling of well-being and enlightenment, for want of a better word, that just kind of rolls through you. And this was in some place that wasn't really special. Just think of how that feels when you're in some place that's been designed around the acoustics with that resonance. The feeling has to be absolutely uh, mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
It's I can't imagine what that feels like.
You know, back in the 60s, the neuroscientists, they proved back then, well, they discovered that like rhythm and acoustics, it can produce a physiological change in the human brain. And
Yeah,
they
and the
called it,
release of endorphins, and that's what you're
yeah,
feeling, is
they
the
call
release
it
of endorphins.
entrainment is what it's called. It's a process called entrainment, which that's exactly what we've been discussing here. So, you know, if you get a pulsing in the external environment, kind of like there in Chaco Canyon, um, your your brainwave speed's going to try to move to match that whatever pulse that it's feeling, and it's going to change your consciousness in the process, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
Yeah.
of scary too, if you think about it, how easily a brain can be manipulated that way.
Right. Well, and that's what music is about. We do it to ourselves intentionally because our brain craves these chemicals that get released when you touch upon these sounds, and that's why the really great pieces of music are universal. Most people, when they hear these really great classical tracks or whatever, they all feel they all feel the emotions, and very few people really if you really question them, yeah, it's not their cup of tea, but do they dislike it? No, they really don't.
Yes. Yeah.
So
You know, and it's not even just people. I mean, how many kids did the science experiment where you take a plant and you blast different music at it? You know, you either play
Yeah.
classical or you play hard rock or, you know, whatever, and look at the way it affects the plant, the way it grows.
right, and most plants like classical music
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of those tones that we talk about when we're talking cymatics are wrapped up in these pieces. So of course, if it affects us, if it affects our feeling of well-being, even though they don't have feelings, it would stand to reason that would help the well-being of the plants
Hmm.
even more because they're so simple. They don't have a nervous system to override. It just changes the way their health.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool.
So, yeah. And a lot of these cultures, there's a lot of cultures where they play music while they were planting or
Yes,
sing certain tones and stuff, because they felt like it increased the yield of the harvest, and it very likely did.
made the work easier too.
And it did
Sometimes
make the work easier too.
look
Yeah,
at the
Mhm.
Scottish women that would pull the wool. You know, they would have the sopping wet wool, and they would pull it, and they did it in a whole harmonic,
Mhm.
pattern, and it just made it easier and it more of a sense of community when they did it that way. And
yeah.
Yeah.
it's
The human mind is one of the most powerful things in the world, and you can the fact that you can manipulate it, um, for good or ill so easily is actually kind of, um, disconcerting.
it is makes
But
me think. I'm a huge Dresden Files fan, and it makes me think of Dead Beats. Have you ever read that, Mark?
do what?
Dresden Files. Have you read Dead Beats?
I have not.
It's book 5. Dude, you need to read it. It's like one of the best ones in the series. And it's all, they have basically zombies coming back, and they use a beat, and that's what keeps them moving. And the second that gets killed, they know
They
they're,
fall down.
they're not under control of the person that was controlling them anymore. So you
Well,
have to
see,
keep that beat going, or they're going to go rogue, kind of thing.
and that's an interesting thing. The traditional zombie from the Jamaican islands and stuff, they weren't dead people that were walking around. They were people who were quote unquote ensorcelled,
Hmm.
and it was a combination of drugs, alcohol, music, and vibration to get them into that state of mind where they were easily controlled.
Yes.
Um, so,
And
like I
once they
said,
were there, they were sure they were dead. They were sure they were a zombie.
right, right,
So they act accordingly.
yeah, you convinced them that they were dead and that they were your slave, and they would indeed act accordingly. And like I said, for good or ill, it is possible to manipulate the human mind in such a
Yep.
way.
It's a said Serpent in the Rainbow movie. Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, uh, and there's just as many examples of this being used for good as there is for bad, probably more, uh,
Yeah.
because the ones wanting to use it for bad have hidden it so that nobody is the wiser when it happens.
Yep.
So anyway, it's the more I get into this, the more I am sure we're going to talk about it again someday.
Absolutely. I was telling you guys backstage, one of the best lines that I heard in some of this research was that we live in a spectrum, and what we see is a very tiny sliver of reality. And so if you look at these frequencies, thinking about we're only seeing this sliver, what if it's like it's on a dial? What if you just, if you turn the dial a little bit, are you not on the earth frequency anymore? Where are you at now? Is turning that dial what leads you to see ghosts? Is it what leads you to see aliens? Is it what leads you to have these encounters that you're not normally going to have if you're on the everyday frequency that we live on, that little
And
sliver that we're on?
and that is an interesting point. What if that is the point? We're just vibrating different, and when we see things that were once there, that might be there, or they're there right now in another place,
We just can't.
another
Yeah,
time.
yeah, they're just on a different frequency. Look at all the radio stations that are floating through the air all the time. That we can't tune into all of them at the same time.
No, we absolutely can't.
Your head might explode. I don't know what would happen. It could be good though, but if you go through them one at a time, you're hearing different things, you're experiencing different things.
Oh.
So is it such a far reach to think that other things could exist on other frequencies that we personally are not tuned into?
Or put it like this: have you ever been in your car someplace where you're right at the edge of two different radio stations on the same frequency, where they just start bleeding into one another?
Yeah,
Is that what we've got?
maybe so.
A little bit of frequency matching right at the edge of the range?
It could be.
I don't know. That'd be something to look into. But we do need to hit Eric up and see if he can create us a portable device to promote well-being. Ooh, we could make a whole line of them, to make your house feel less haunted,
Yeah.
to improve your health at home. We could have settings on it.
It makes me think of the air purifier. I have like a very small one, and if you set it on purify, it purifies the air. What if you just dial into, okay, I want my house to be rid of ghosts, so let's dial it over there. Or
I want to promote a feeling of health, well-being throughout my house. Let's put it on this frequency.
I could see that used in business. To bring it in before you do a big presentation.
We got to quit talking about this, guys. Somebody's going to steal our ideas. You're putting it out there. Stop.
I'm pretty sure somebody's already thought of all of this.
Oh.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Just in case.
Copyright Bordertown.
Copyright Bordertown.
That's right.
I'm playing the ticker.
All right.
All right. I don't have much else, guys.
I have one other thing to hit before we
by all means
wrap it up.
You go for it, and then I have like crop circle stuff.
Ooh,
yeah.
And then I'll be done. Yeah.
One that I really liked, and I think we can all kind of, at least here in our little group of three here, cats purr at a frequency that can heal bones, and this is proven, and I think that's fascinating. They let's see, they purr both during inhalation and exhalation with a consistent pattern and a frequency between 25 and 150 hertz. Various investigators have shown that sound frequencies in this range can improve bone density and promote healing. And they think cats have adapted to conserve energy because they sleep during long periods, of rest and whatever. That it may be possible that purring is a low energy mechanism that stimulates muscles and bones without a lot of energy. So if you look at the fact that we've got cats that recently have become more bred, we've got our more domesticated, we've got our little flat-faced smushy ones that are not, that are super cute, but can't really survive on their own kind of thing. But they don't have a lot of problems like some of the dogs do that have been bred down into specific breeds. A lot of dogs have problems with like osteo issues, muscular issues, dysplasia, things like that. Yeah, cats don't really seem to suffer from a lot of that. So they're kind of thinking that maybe because of this, because of their purr and because of the hertz that they do this at, that maybe that's why they don't suffer like that, because they self-heal. They can promote their own bone health. They can promote their own muscle health. So I know a lot of times we think cats just purr when they're happy. They actually don't. They purr when they're scared too, or when they're stressed. They purr when they're going to the vet, or, when they're injured, or they're just really anxious. So it's more than likely it's a means of communication and just a potential of self-healing. And I just think that's really cool. I love cats.
I think that they also will heal they're the people that they live with. So
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I have a story. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was preeclamptic, to the point where I was forced to stay pretty much bedridden the last couple of months, and I had to keep my house dark. I couldn't have the TV on because of the flashing lights. So I would literally just sit under a dim lamp and read. That's all I did. And I had a cat at the time who was not a lap sitter. She would sit beside you for little bits of time and then she was off on her own. She wasn't a lap sitter. But before I even really knew that I was becoming preeclamptic, she started taking to sitting on my lap. And I thought it was because, well, she must know that I'm pregnant. So maybe
Yeah.
she's trying to butt in. By the time I was pretty much just on my back, having to keep it, very lazy, she would climb up on my chest right above my belly and she would sleep, but she would purr the whole time she was sleeping, which was very odd for her.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned it to my doctor. I had to go in like once a week to get my levels checked and spend time in the hospital. But that was a fun year. But I mentioned to him at one point, I was like, my damn cat, I can't keep her off of me. And it was the middle of summer, and when you're pregnant, you're hot, and with a cat. And he was like, oh, it's just because she knows that you've got something amok. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, well, people who have cats, they'll lay on them and purr when they know there's something wrong. And then later on, I'd heard the same thing too, that their purring actually had some type of a healing effect to it. So I always wondered if she was just trying to help.
She probably was.
Well, I find it relaxing. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was hotter than Hades. If it had been winter, I'm sure it would have been.
Much better
It
at
was
that point.
Yeah.
That's
Anywho.
awesome. Cats are great. Just another good mark off for the cats.
Yeah.
there you go.
Sorry, dog people. Hopefully you're cat and dog people. I think all of us
All
are.
right. So, did you have anything left, Pam, or is that it?
That was
Okay.
the main things I wanted to hit.
All right. Well, then let's finish off with a little bit of crop circle, stuff.
I like
All
it.
right. So, kind of like the ley lines, we've actually done a show or two on crop circles with the guys.
Yeah.
Go back and rewatch it. I'm going to touch on pretty much some of the stuff that we touched on there, but I'm going to do it from the Harmonics Cymatics side of it. So you can kind of get this is a very big theory on how these are made. So forget your alien stuff and forget about Doug and Dave and their idiocy.
Damn you, Doug.
I'm talking about what people consider to be true circles, ones that don't have footprints in and out of them, ones that were made in so quick of a time it wouldn't be humanly possible to recreate them, ones that are so big they can only be seen from above.
Yeah.
This is the kind of circles we're talking about. So they part of crop circle study, when these people go in to put down all the information, is they do take the resonance frequencies from these circles. They're almost always measured, and they all have it. They all rest between 260 to 329 megahertz. The biggest one, the Julia set one, the biggest one that was ever made, it resonated at 1.2 gigahertz. So they have found the more intricate and complicated the pattern, the higher on the scale it goes. Like it can go through the roof. So these literally will ring on their own for days and days and sometimes weeks after they're made. So that right there should tell you something. If you can step outside of that circle and it drops, and then you step within the circle.
That explains the interference with electronics in the circles.
Yeah, which I'm getting ready to go into. So I made a list here. So I went back to my crop circle study information and I went through it and I wrote down all the circle phenomena that happens that could be attributed to a harmonic resonance. So I'm just going to go through the list here really quick so everybody can kind of get an idea. So we have internal changes to the crops or the grass that's in the circle. That could be resonance space. We already know this because we've discussed this before, that frequencies can change something. Changes to the soil within the patterns. Animals acting strangely within it, and sometimes just without it. A lot of the time, these researchers had dogs that wouldn't even step a paw inside of those circles. Odd magnetic readings. Compasses not facing north or spinning. Now, just so you'll know, low frequencies have been seen to interfere with compasses.
Yep.
So it's the same. It's the magnetic. It screws with that.
Polarity. Yep.
Yeah, cameras and recording equipment malfunctioning. Systems of problematic harmonic levels include overheating of transformers, motors, cables, thermal tripping, or protected devices, and logic faults of digital devices. So that could absolutely be harmonics there. Blurry photos can be caused by the vibrations.
Bigfoot.
Anyone? It's all connected. Health complaints, not feeling well when you're walking into the circle, but you feel just fine the minute you step that toe outside of it again. Strange feelings or feelings of euphoria when you walk inside of the circle.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and strange sounds heard and even stranger sounds recorded. So if you go back to that initial one that we did just on crop circles, Pam brought a lot of the audio from some of these very strange circles. Some of it is strange, some of it is euphoric sounding, some of it is just absolute downright scary.
Yeah.
None of it sounds human. So harmonics and frequencies, right? So I did a little mini list because I knew we were going to be here all night to do this. So I wrote a little mini list of particular crop circles that were of interest to what we're talking about here, that really brought up some of this resonance that was happening. So starting off, Gerald S. Hawkins, who is an author and the former head of astronomy at Boston University, he did a study on Stonehenge and he was the one that discovered it was more or less like a computer that would tell you where all the celestial bodies were, how things, like the giant calendar type of situation that it was. He also studied crop circles, which a lot of people don't know. And he found that all the measurements and all the true crop circles that he studied matched the frequencies of the major scale in music.
Yeah.
He also found Euclid's geometry theorems within their measurements too. Just a little off thingy there. But all of them had all the steps of musical theory within their patterns, right?
Uh-huh.
So the last show, part 1, we talked about the Sri Lanka formation. Didn't we? Didn't we talk about that?
We
I think we did. Yeah. That one happened in Oregon in 1990. And when it was formed, it was one of the largest ones that's ever been made. It was 13 miles, right? Big. You can only see it from above. It was seen by a gentleman who was out flying. He had a student. It was an area where they taught students how to fly. And it was literally the visual translation of Om.
Yeah.
That you find on a tonoscope. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you find when you vibrate the tonoscope and it, right? And the interesting thing about this one is, so it's made this Om pattern. Long story short, there was no way for somebody to fake this, it was impossible. All the steps they took to try to figure out if it could be done. I mean, it was ground down like 2 inches into hard pack, with all of the dirt that was moved out of it was missing over
So it
a
wasn't like
13-mile area.
little clumps of dirt anywhere.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this one, so not only was that visual representation of there, but they actually monitored the formation area for years afterwards, and just afterwards, the rainfall in this area suddenly upticked, which was very unusual because this was a dry pack area, so it was basically just barren dirt and shrub. It suddenly became the luscious valley in that area, and it started to grow plants and animals within it that were not a part of the region.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Literally.
So new species that had never been in that valley before were suddenly there, but only in this one compact place. The rest of it is all still hard pack. So that right there, I think, says something.
Yeah. That
Right?
really does. Yeah.
That does. It kind of makes you wonder who's been doing in the area, because
Yeah.
isn't it Death Valley that actually the lake has water in it for the first time in a really long time?
Interesting to note, I did track it. There is a ley line that goes through that area, and I wonder if it's a ley line that woke up.
Oh, maybe so.
That could be. I wonder where it's connected to.
Yeah. Oh, well, to a whole chasm of dead and default and alive lines. I mean, it's all just all over the place. Who knows how all that functions? I don't know.
That's interesting.
So yeah. I'm just
Very
gonna do a
cool.
couple more so you guys everybody can kind of see. So the sand formation, crop circles are made in more than just grass and plants. They're made in dirt and sand and snow and water and anything else that can be manipulated. So there was a famous one called the Sand Formation in Hug Point, Oregon. It was found in 1994. And this one was found by a woman who was actually out dowsing. She had dowsing rods. And she was looking for energy spots on the beach. She was a practitioner of energy, one of the ladies who likes to go out and, like feel where the energy patterns are. She actually found this huge line of energy and she followed it, and it took her straight into a cave. And that is where she found a freaking circle.
Yep.
Not a crop circle, a sand circle, I guess I should say. It was so large they couldn't actually take a photo of it because they couldn't get high enough in the cave over the top of it to get that full photo effect. Yeah. So she's followed this energy in there. The energy inside the cave was completely different. And they tested the soil from inside the circle there, and it showed severely high chemical changes. So the actual sand had gone through a chemical change with this weird frequency that was running through there.
Nice.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
And I'm pretty sure Doug and Dave weren't in the cave.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We have the Barberry Castle Formation, July 1991 in Wiltshire. Now, Wiltshire, for any of you at home who don't know a lot about crop circles, is like the Mecca. It's like home base for crop circles. They get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every year. Just within a year, they'll get hundreds. This one is well known because all of the people who were in the castle and in the surrounding area within a mile could hear a colossal roar coupled with a pulsing hum at exactly 3:30 a.m. And it only lasted for about 5 seconds, they said. But they said it like reverberated through everything. It reverberated through them. Like you could feel it in your organs. They thought that it was planes flying over at first, but there had been no air traffic in the area at the time. And that next morning, they found one of the largest circles just outside the Barbary Castle in the grasses outside of there. So, interesting to note, another gentleman actually recorded some lights that same night over that field from a different direction when the sound happened. So lights were involved with that one somehow. But yeah, this massive kind of radiating boom that shook everything.
That's cool.
It's kind of crazy.
That is
Yeah,
pretty
that
cool.
is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to finish up. So I was going to talk about just a little bit, and we've mentioned these on many shows before. So the growing circles. We've talked about circles before that continue to grow as they're being looked at and researched over the course of a few days. There was a patch of them near us in Missouri, in Odessa and Barnes, that these did this. They were actually really close to each other, and they both continued to grow over the next couple of days. The resonances recorded in these were very loud, which I think means that they were literally still forming while those people were there.
Maybe so.
They were still just ringing like crazy. And I almost wish that they had known at the time that maybe that had something to do with it and could have figured out some way to have recorded that sound and then replayed it somewhere else to see if they could get it to recreate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be interesting to get a hold of that frequency and see if you can make it happen again.
Yeah, it would be awesome. But yeah, any of you at home that are interested in this, just look into crop circles in general. You will find that the weird resonance and all of these weird attributes happen with most of these circles. The true ones, I should say, not the man-made ones or the ones that Doug and Dave did. That's a different kinds of resonance altogether.
That's the resonance of rye whiskey.
Yes. And mad wives.
Very angry wives. What have you and that loser been out there doing? No?
We have Triggedytron that just stopped by in our comments and said, I just randomly found this channel. This is dope. We welcome, man.
Oh, welcome.
Glad to have you.
Nice.
We do this every 2 weeks. We get really weird, so come join.
I mean, super weird. And, the weirder it is, the more we like it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that is the end of my research for this. We could probably, it's like we always say this, we could probably do a whole year's worth of information on harmonics and cymatics, but yeah.
Now, I hope everybody else understands why this is one of my favorite subjects. I just get really excited about all this. I think it's neat. I think it's fascinating.
It's a great topic because it's just like what we always say, it's all connected. It leaks into almost every little aspect of the paranormal and the strange and ancient mysteries, and it all, I mean, even science, on the science side of it, it's sitting there like poking at us. So yeah, it's excellent.
Everybody basically recognizes there's something to this. There's a lot to this we just don't understand, that we may never understand completely. I think, though, that it is really fascinating to see what our ancestors were aware of, and then all of a sudden it's all new and different for us. It was just something that was lost.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Sure.
Well, I don't have anything else. If you guys don't,
I'm good to go.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for stopping in and listening to our weirdness as we go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And pardon me, my allergies are choking me to death. I hope to see everybody back on the chat next time. in 2 weeks, and
Yep.
I'll try to get something up about what we're going to cover ahead of time. So,
Oh, and catch Bordertown Strange next
Yes.
Wednesday.
yep, next
We're gonna
Wednesday.
do part 2 of ghostly animals and why animals can detect spirit before we do.
Yep.
Yep,
Be a
Or
good one.
roundabouts there.
that will be a good one.
Triggity did say, do you know anything about a story about scientists using a frequency in the pyramids? If you go back and listen to the beginning of our podcast, you'll hear us talking a lot about the pyramids and stuff. So, yeah, you can catch it in there.
Yeah. And if you've got ideas like you'd like to hear about, send them, put them down in the comments, and we'll make sure to put it up in our lineup.
Put them in the comments. Visit the What If Tomorrow Facebook group or What If Tomorrow Media, or like I said, leave a comment on YouTube, and we will see it.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. That being said, I bid everybody a good night and a good rest of the month. So,
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Good night.